Somewhere, right now, there's a cast iron skillet sitting in a cardboard box at an estate sale, marked $5. The family clearing out the house sees a heavy, slightly rusty old pan nobody wants. A collector sees the smooth, machined surface and the spider logo on the bottom, and knows that exact pan has sold for thousands of dollars. One of them is about to make the trade of the day. This entire series has been about one idea, that new appliances are engineered to fail, locked down, and designed to be replaced. Today, we flip it completely, because there is a whole category of kitchen gear where the smart money does the opposite of everything we've talked about, where the move is to buy old on purpose, because the old version is better built, lasts longer, and is very often worth more than the shiny new one in the store. A $30 thrift store find that's worth $800, a grandmother's mixer worth more than a mortgage payment, a stove from $1,953 that sells for $16,000, while a brand new one struggles to last a decade. These are 10 kitchen appliances and pieces of kitchen gear that are worth more used than new, and the estate sale map to find them before everyone else does. Number 1 is the single most sought-after vintage appliance in America, and you've almost certainly seen one. But first, you need to understand why this happens at all, why old beats new, in a way it does almost nowhere else. The reason is simple, and it's the same villain from every other video in this series, just seen from the other side. Planned obsolescence hadn't been invented yet. The companies that built these things were competing on durability, because durability is what's sold, so they used materials and methods that modern accountants would never approve. Cast iron was machined and polished to a glass-smooth surface. Mixer gears were cut from solid metal and driven by motors built like power tools. Glassware was made from space-age ceramics tougher than what's in your kitchen today. Stoves were welded from heavy steel and porcelain and designed, explicitly, to be repaired for 50 years, not thrown away in 7. Your great-grandmother's mixer still runs because it was made from metal and actual engineering, not plastic, and a planned death date. And then a second force kicked in. The collector market caught fire. A wave of younger buyers, Gen Z and millennials, fell in love with retro design, the colors, the chrome, the patterns, and started hunting this stuff on TikTok and eBay. Vintage now makes up a huge share of the entire collectibles market, well over 40% of its revenue in recent years. So you get a perfect storm. The old appliances are genuinely better built, and they're newly fashionable, and they're finite. They stopped making them decades ago. Better, rarer, and trending all at once. That's a recipe for prices that go up while the machine on the showroom floor loses half its value the day you plug it in. And it helps to split this into 2 kinds of value, because they're different games. There's use value, the vintage piece, that's simply a better tool, the cast iron that's smoother, the mixer that's stronger, the copper that cooks better. You buy those to actually cook on, and you win because the old one outperforms and outlasts the new one for less money. Then there's collector value, the rare pattern, the discontinued color, the maker's mark that sends a price into the thousands whether or not you ever turn the thing on. The best finds are both at once. A skillet you fry eggs on Tuesday and could sell for $1,000 on Wednesday. But knowing which game a given piece is playing tells you what to inspect, what to pay, and whether to use it or wrap it in a towel and resell it. Use value rewards condition and function. Collector value rewards rarity and marks. Learn to feel the difference, and you'll never overpay or undersell again. So where do you actually find them? This is the estate sale map, and it matters as much as knowing what to look for. And there has never been a better moment to hunt because of a quiet demographic wave. The largest generation in modern history is aging out of the homes they've lived in for 50 and 60 years, downsizing, moving into care, or passing on. Those houses are full of exactly the mid-century gear this video is about, bought new in the era when things were built to last, and now it's all hitting the second-hand market at once. Estate sales are flooded with it. The supply of genuinely great vintage appliances is, right now, larger than it has ever been, or likely ever will be again. The people who learn to read this market in the next few years are buying at the bottom of a supply wave. Miss it, and in a decade these pieces get locked into collections and priced like the treasures they are. The single best hunting ground is exactly what the title says: estate sales. Here's why they work. When a household is being cleared, usually after someone passes the family running, the sale is overwhelmed, emotional, and motivated to empty the house fast. They are not appliance appraisers. To them, Grandma's mixer and Grandma's stove are just heavy things that need to be gone by Sunday. So they price to move, and the knowledgeable buyer walks in and pays $5 for an $800 pan. The pros work the timing. Show up early on the first day for the best pieces, or show up in the last hour when everything's half off and they just want it gone. Beyond estate sales, the map widens. Live and online auctions, where whole estates get liquidated. Thrift stores and Goodwill, where donated treasures get priced by volunteers who don't know a Griswold from a frying pan. Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, where the magic words are moving, downsizing, and must go this weekend. And antique malls, which are pricier, but where the hunting is already done for you. One regional tip that runs through all of it: location changes everything. Vintage stoves, for instance, have been red hot in California for decades, so a range that's nearly free in rural Ohio can be a four-figure prize on the coast. Know your local market, and you can even buy low in one place and sell high in another. And the golden rule of the hunt: learn the maker's marks. The difference between a $5 pan and a $5,000 pan is often a single logo stamped on the bottom, the word Hobart on a mixer, the spider on a skillet, the right pattern name on a piece of glass. Learn maybe a dozen of these marks, and you'll see money on shelves that everyone else walks right past. Here's a starter set to memorize. On a mixer, flip it and hunt for the word Hobart on the band or base, then check the model number against an online age chart. On cast iron, look for the Griswold Cross logo or the Wagner script, and run your fingers across the cooking surface. Glassy smooth means old and good. Rough and pebbled means modern. On glassware, learn the Pyrex pattern names. Cornflower is common, but dianthus, lucky in love, and the gooseberry pinks are the ones that pay. On a stove, find the maker's badge and the model number, and note the features: a griddle, a clock, a warming shelf, a second oven. 5 minutes of homework per category is the entire edge. The piece doesn't hide its value. It's stamped right on it, in a language most shoppers never bothered to learn. And a few field tactics that separate the pros from the tourists: bring cash, small bills, move sales, and earn discounts. Bring a small magnet to tell solid metal from cheap-plated pot metal, a flashlight for reading marks in dim garages, and your phone for looking up patterns and model numbers right there on the spot. Work the timing. First hour of day one for the trophies, last hour of the final day for the half-off desperation deals, when the four-figure stove nobody hauled away suddenly becomes a few $100s. And always politely ask the magic question: is this your best price? On a motivated estate, it almost never is. Now the 10 things to hunt for, counting up to the crown jewel. Number 10. Vintage electric blenders. Start with a humble countertop workhorse. The old Oster Osterizer, the chrome beehive models from the 50s through the 70s, and vintage wearing blenders were built around a solid metal base and an all-metal drive coupling between the motor and the jar. That little coupler is the part that matters. On modern blenders, it's a cheap plastic gear designed to strip out, sometimes deliberately, so the whole unit fails and you buy another. On the vintage ones, it's metal, and it simply does not quit. People are still blending daily on Osterizers older than they are. They're not four-figure collectibles, but here's the point. A clean vintage one costs you $20 or $30 at a sale and outlasts the $80 new one 3 times over. Same job, a fraction of the price, and built from metal, where where the new one is built from plastic and good intentions. Number 9. Vintage toasters, the most beautiful appliance category in this whole list. From the 1920s through the 60s, toasters were art objects gleaming chrome, Art Deco curves, mechanical works built like fine clocks. The Toastrite Blue Willow from the late 20s with its porcelain-like china exterior is a genuine collector's piece. The Chrome Sunbeam and Toastmaster automatics are design icons that still pop up at sales for a few dollars. And here's the kicker, many of them still make better toast than your modern one, because the mechanisms were overbuilt and the heating elements were generous. A coveted vintage toaster can be worth a small fortune to collectors, and even the common ones are gorgeous, functional, and nearly free to find. You're buying a working sculpture that browns bread. Try saying that about the plastic box on your counter. Number 8. Vintage pepper mills and Scandinavian kitchenware. This one surprises people. The Danish designer Jens Quistgaard, working for the brand Dansk in the mid-century, designed teak pepper mills, over 50 distinct forms of them, that are now passionately collected. A single one of his mills can run anywhere from $100 to over $1,000. Dansk's enameled steel cookware, in those vivid mid-century reds and blues, has climbed right alongside it. This is the design collectible end of the kitchen, pieces bought for the artistry as much as the function. At an estate sale, a Quistgaard mill looks like an old wooden pepper grinder. To the right buyer, it's a small fortune in teak. Learn the shapes, check the bottoms, and you'll spot them in a junk box for a couple of dollars. Number 7. Vintage French copper cookware, the professional's secret and the collector's prize at once. Real vintage French copper, the kind made from the 1800s up through the Second World War, was forged from extraordinarily thick copper, often 2 to 3 millimeters, with hand-forged brass or cast iron handles. That thickness is everything. It conducts and holds heat with a precision modern thin copper simply can't match. Professional chefs hunt these pieces specifically because the cooking performance is unmatched and the craftsmanship is irreplaceable. A heavy vintage copper saucepan or sauté pan, properly retinned, can outperform anything sold new today and hold its value for another century. The weight is the tell. Pick it up if it's surprisingly, almost absurdly heavy for its size. You may be holding the good stuff. Number 6. Vintage and discontinued Le Creuset, the enameled cast iron that goes up in value instead of down. A modern Le Creuset Dutch oven is already an investment piece, but the vintage ones are something else because the company has cycled through dozens of colors over the decades, and the discontinued ones are genuinely rare. A vintage piece, even with a little wear, can sell for as much as a brand new one, and the special editions go far higher. Discontinued shades, designer collaborations with names like Raymond Louis and Enzo Mari, those run from $300 to $800 and beyond for a single pot. Unlike almost everything else in your kitchen, a Le Creuset bought in 1975 may be worth more today than the day it was sold. Check the color against the discontinued lists, and check the lid. The old integrated handle design dates a piece instantly. Number 5. Vintage Corningware, the single toughest thing on this entire list. Real vintage Corningware, from the late 50s into the 80s, is made from pyroceram, a ceramic glass material that was literally developed for the nose cones of guided missiles. It can go from freezer to oven to stovetop burner without cracking. It is, functionally, indestructible. The everyday blue cornflower pieces are common and cheap, but the rare patterns, especially certain Spice-O-Life pieces and prototypes, have sold for astonishing sums. The most coveted examples have reached $13,000. $13,000 for a casserole dish your grandmother kept lasagna in. Modern Corningware, by the way, isn't even made of pyroceram anymore. They switched to ordinary stoneware. So the old stuff isn't just collectible, it's made of a material you literally cannot buy new. That's the dream find, better than new and irreplaceable. Quick thing before the top 4. If you're enjoying the hunt, subscribe. Every breakdown on this channel follows what's actually worth your money, not what the showroom wants you to buy. No brand deals, no sponsorships, just the truth about value. Number 4. Vintage Pyrex, the crown of the glassware world and the obsession that launched 1,000 TikToks. Pyrex's colorware line launched in 1945, and over the following decades it produced patterned mixing bowls, casserole dishes, and Cinderella bowls in a rainbow of designs. Most are common and sell for $10 or $20. But the rare ones, the test patterns, the limited promotional pieces have gone supernova. A single mixing bowl in the rare blue dianthus pattern sold for $3,600. A turquoise and gold Space Saver casserole, one of only a couple known, sold for around $6,000. Think about that ratio. The same shelf at the same estate sale might hold a $12 bowl and a several $1,000 bowl, and they look almost identical to an untrained eye. This is the category where learning the patterns pays the most. The difference between profit and walking right past it is pure knowledge. Number 3. Griswold & Wagner cast iron, the pans that started this whole conversation, and for good reason. Griswold, founded in Erie, Pennsylvania in 1865, and Wagner, out of Sydney, Ohio, made cast iron the way no major company does today. They machined and polished the cooking surface to a glassy smoothness, so the pan is genuinely lighter and more naturally non-stick than a modern one fry an egg, and it slides. Modern Lodge, by contrast, stopped machining its surfaces smooth back in the 60s. New pans come rough and pebbled, so a vintage Griswold isn't just collectible, it cooks better. Common Griswold skillets sell for around $200. The rare ones, the spider logo pieces, the large block logo number 13, the early Erie series, climb into the thousands. One one-of-a-kind spider skillet sold for $8,000 on eBay. And the beautiful part, these turn up at thrift stores constantly, rusty and ignored, because most people think old cast iron is junk. And here's the secret that makes them even better deals: rust is almost never fatal. A Griswold that looks like a rusted hockey puck can be stripped to bare metal, re-seasoned, and brought to better than new in an afternoon, because underneath the rust, the iron is perfect. It doesn't rot, it doesn't wear out, it just needs its surface back. So the ugliest, most ignored pan in the bin is often the best buy in the building everyone else sees junk, and you see a 40-minute restoration sitting on top of a small fortune. Flip it over, read the logo, and you might be holding a car payment. Number 2. Vintage gas ranges. Now we get to the big iron, the appliance that most dramatically proves this whole video's point. The classic mid-century gas stoves O'Keefe and Merritt, Chambers, Wedgwood, Western Holly are widely considered some of the best ranges ever built in America. Heavy welded steel, thick porcelain enamel, real chrome, and features modern stoves still can't match like the Chambers ovens engineered to finish cooking with the gas turned completely off, on stored heat alone. The desirable names each have their signatures: the O'Keefe and Merritt Grillivator, broiler that raises and lowers at the turn of a knob, the tilt-out control panels, the griddles and salt and pepper shakers molded right into the backsplash. The Aristocrat and Town and Country double-oven models are the trophies collectors chase. They were built to be repaired for generations, and they have been. Here's the money reality. A new gas range runs about $1,000 and is built to last maybe a decade. A professionally restored vintage O'Keefe and Merritt Aristocrat sells for between $10,000 and $16,000. Even unrestored, pulled straight out of a house, the desirable models command real money, and a good one will run another 50 to 75 years with basic care. One warning that matters here: restoration is expensive and real. The chrome and enamel and gas safety work runs into the thousands, so an unrestored bargain is only a bargain if you know what you're getting into. But find a clean original at an estate sale for a few $100s, and you've found one of the great deals in the entire appliance world. And number 1, the most sought-after vintage appliance in America, the Hobart-era KitchenAid stand mixer. You know the silhouette. It's on a million wedding registries today. But the KitchenAid you want isn't the new one. The KitchenAid mixer was invented by the Hobart Manufacturing Company, which built commercial mixers for bakeries and Navy ships, and brought that same industrial engineering into the home starting in 1919. For decades, Hobart built these things like the commercial machines they descended from solid metal housings, all-metal gear drives, motors that simply refused to die. Then, in 1986, Hobart sold KitchenAid to Whirlpool. So, the magic word, the one stamped on the metal band of the most valuable units, is Hobart. Anything pre-1986 is true vintage. The legendary Model K, built from the late 30s into the 50s, the workhorse, in pristine condition and rare colors like petal pink or island green, has reached $4,000 to $5,000 at auction. The early H5 models sell for multiple thousands. Even ordinary vintage ones bring a few hundred. Compare that to a new one at $400 to $500 that's now built with more plastic inside. And here's the detail that makes it perfect. KitchenAid never changed the attachment hub. So an attachment from 1937 fits the mixer you'd buy tomorrow, and a vintage grinder or pasta roller from a thrift store snaps right onto any KitchenAid ever made. A machine built before the moon landing, still running, still upgradable, worth 10 times the new one. That's number one. That's what built to last actually looks like. So before you go hunting, a few honest cautions, because this isn't free money. Condition is everything. As the appraisers say, if it isn't fit for cooking, it isn't fit for collecting. A cracked Pyrex bowl or a rusted-through pan is worth a fraction of a clean one. Inspect before you buy. Hairline cracks in glass, rust pitting in iron, frayed wiring in anything electric, and on a vintage stove, the condition of the gas valves and safety systems, which can cost a fortune to make right. Don't pay restored prices for an unrestored piece. A beautiful-looking stove can hide a broken broiler that costs more than the stove to fix. And know which game you're playing, buying to use or buying to flip. If you're using it, condition and function matter most. If you're flipping it, the maker's mark, the rare pattern, and the color are where the money lives. Either way, the knowledge is the asset. The pan doesn't change. What changes is whether you know what you're looking at. And in fairness, because this channel doesn't do hype, not everything old beats new, and you should know exactly where the line is. Modern dishwashers genuinely clean better and use a fraction of the water. Modern refrigerators are dramatically more energy efficient, so a gorgeous 1950s fridge running as your daily driver will quietly eat its savings in electricity. Modern induction cooktops are faster and safer than nearly anything vintage, and anything with old wiring or old refrigerant deserves a clear-eyed inspection before it goes into daily use. The vintage edge is strongest in the simple, mechanical, material-driven things: the cast iron, the copper, the mixers, the glassware, the burner and oven heart of a gas range. The more a job depends on efficiency, water, or electronics, the more the new one earns its keep. Buy vintage where build and materials win. Buy new where efficiency and safety win. That's the honest map, and it's the one that actually saves you money instead of just feeling romantic. So here's the thread that ties this back to everything else we've talked about. All across the modern showroom, new means sealed, locked, disposable, and quietly designed to fail. But walk into an estate sale, and you walk into the era before all of that, when companies competed to build the thing that would outlive the buyer, and frequently did. The cast iron is smoother, the mixer is metal, the stove is built to be repaired for a century. And the market has finally noticed, which is why a $5 pan can be worth $800 and a grandmother's mixer can be worth more than the new car in the driveway. Buying vintage isn't just thrift. It's a quiet rebellion against planned obsolescence, choosing the machine that was built before they learned how to make things die on schedule. And every vintage piece you put back into daily use is one less new disposable, one manufactured, one less old masterpiece sent to a landfill, and one working heirloom kept alive. A restored vintage stove uses a tiny fraction of the resources a new one costs to build. So thrift here isn't only good for your wallet, it's quietly the most sustainable kitchen choice you can make, and it happens to look better than anything in the store. The smart money in this one category isn't on the showroom floor. It's in a cardboard box at an estate sale on a Saturday morning, marked $5, waiting for someone who knows what it really is. So tell me, what's the best vintage kitchen find you've ever scored, or the one you let slip away? Drop it in the comments. And if this sent you hunting, subscribe. We follow what's actually worth your money every single time.